report here.
And called and said, she's gonna have the baby. So we rushed down and she didn't have it for
So it's got to go up on that side. Yeah.
One thing she was in a place with a fish.
Not off that far, horizontally.
Oh, yeah.
It's right straight across, if you look for no signal, right across the shadow line.
You just got to turn.
Yeah, you're right, probably okay.
Yeah, you just gotta turn it, put it back a little further. You'll be fine.
Is there something more than one? It still needs to go up higher in the front, but I think it's maxed. I think it's maxed on the front. Oh, there it goes. Hold a little bit more, you know.
Okay, cord is,
Causing an issue.
or binding a little. Okay, now.
Drop it down.
I'll lift the other side up.
All day long.
Well, I think it's recording.
Should we set up so that, well, we're just practicing right now anyway.
This is just to make sure it'll run.
It'll run
for
for
4 hours.
You don't want to go higher, you gotta go lower.
Okay, which way am I?
No, that's fine. I have
The
to.
intent wasn't a record copy, it was just to make sure the thing works.
So it's going to have to go to control alternate three, right?
And you just type in
Oh, that's right.
password.
That's right.
Remember the password?
Yeah.
Perfect. We've got folder videos and on the internet, so I'll come in here and figure it out. So, what are you looking
So now it's going to go be able to open files and open, I'm going to go get on the internet. So get on the internet on this system.
Google. You can find Google. Is there Google on it?
Okay,
Should automatically, you're already on the internet.
Right, but I want to find a web browser.
Internet Explorer.
Well, there we go. Okay, I guess what's going on tonight is Bruce, or Bill said he was going to do a presentation, but he's not ready to do a presentation, so that's going to get put off. So I guess Paula, do you have a presentation tonight?
No, I don't.
Oh, I guess you didn't get yours on either. So we're not having a presentation on anybody tonight, I guess.
Oh, actually, I think I found it. Yeah.
All right. Says the, what's the date? Come on. No one had presentations ready. Okay. All right, how come that's not over there? I'm hooked up. Well, this is, did it come out the back of that? You know, the USB, right? There's no signal. All right, well, maybe it's got to hit this dude here. These function. Usually just finds it.
Yeah, it should.
That's what it did last time.
Were you on,
Oh, wait a minute.
we may have done something today when my wife and I were trying to figure out how to download the video.
You just had something a couple minutes ago.
Yeah, you had it. check make sure you're plugged in.
Yeah.
Go to, control, you need to, go down and check, make sure it's recognizing the, external device.
So where do I do that on this thing? Wait, because I saw like a little wrench thing.
Yeah, if you go to regular Google, it's at the bottom.
Gerald knows how to turn the wrench.
Yeah. All too much lately.
This is annoying.
Joe Joey for some
I
fun.
really don't like this.
Or let Joey for fun
There
tomorrow.
you go. It's mouse right.
Where you in there,
That's
Mark?
it right there.
I gotta
This is,
put that on.
the disc.
These things underneath.
It says Epson disc.
Uh,
Don't want that.
You don't have to bend it by hand, do you?
What's
I
that?
gotta pick them all up by hand.
Just hit that. All right. Let's just do
So
that.
it's
Yeah,
right, reading.
the old login
All right,
truck,
do that again. Project to,
everything rusted.
PC
They don't have a
Screen
screen
on. duplicate. All right,
Yeah,
extend.
oh,
Second
Yes,
screen.
thanks.
So if I hit
There's an icon just down there at the bottom,
This, that was.
and that's where it has all your devices and stuff.
Use,
Go to the corner and just see if
you know, because we can't.
I'll tell you. We need to get this thing set up for the way Windows 7 looks, because then I can actually use it.
I don't know.
So how do I get this, get rid of this thing?
Because, you know, you
Doesn't
need
task
to
manager.
all around by the load.
Not in the,
Especially
down
the
here.
wing
too
arms,
small space.
this is the load in the body.
This thing?
No, next to
That?
that.
Folders?
Okay.
All you had to do one on one other truck.
CD. It should be reading your reps and
The first one I was there, I did 5 cents.
My eyes haven't been tracking too good in this next.
Application's already running. Looks like it's running like umpteen times now. No, we just,
try clicking there, let's see what happens.
this is acting like it's an external CD drive. Last week we came in here, this thing just went, boom,
Yeah,
and came
I just
on.
hooked it right up, signed on. You want to go ahead and start off, fiddle with it.
Yeah, I suppose I need to get stuff up on the screen so we can see what the heck that we're
I'm
doing.
happy. Oh, that went away.
No.
Oh, sorry about that. Well, this simple thing we can do at the moment is, do we have a just general agreement that we can, where's my pen? Is my pen over there? Just slide with that thing.
No, it's right behind the computer.
We need to have a reasonable agreement, on how we're gonna handle the edits and things like that for the town office. And what we talked about a couple of weeks ago was, providing like up to like 3 copies of just clean copies that didn't have any edit marks on them, so people just see what the thing is gonna look like, and then have at least, 1 or 2 copies of the, marked up ordinance, so you can see, in the margin, all the markup. So everybody can see exactly what changed.
Yeah.
Okay, so do you think 3 copies is enough or not enough
No.
in the town offices? It's all gonna be available online too.
It's got 3 copies would be plenty.
Okay, of the regular ordinance, and then 2 additional copies of the markup,
I do 3 and 3.
3 and 3.
That one right there, if somebody wants to sign one out for the night.
So. Okay, now the next question is, obviously quite a bit of this is just all based on completely, a lot of the sections, like, the shoreline section and several other ones, And a lot of the markup in the margin right now is just changing like the letter A to the number 15.1.1.1 or whatever, that type of markup. Now, to me, that's not any substantive change, that's just renumbering things. It has nothing to do with like the content or anything like that. And I mean, there's like a lot of that markup on the right side. It's very difficult, you know, even with me, to read through and figure out, you know, what was changed, what's not changed, even though I personally made most of the changes. And can we,
I think we can delete
the numbers, but leave the moves and leave the moves in there and leave all the text changes in there.
but it is just confusing.
Yeah, it's not very.
Right, so if there's a move or a delete or an add, that gets to stay in there. Because even the moves, if you take the if you just approve the moves, that's not really right either. You know what I mean?
No, that's right.
So, and I've already, for the most part, accepted all just the format changes. Like if it was formatted from like one font to another font, I've approved those, because that was even worse. If you want, we can shut both of them down and then start fresh. So I just turn that off.
Just plug it in Bruce's, get all this, the ordinances right up there.
I'm not as good at doing some of the things there.
Well, all we need to do probably, well, tonight you're gonna have,
Yeah, it's supposed to, it's
Supposed to
recitation
be.
anyway, it's on our.
right,
Well, basically, it's all of us just looking down through what's done to now.
Yeah.
Bruce. There it goes. All right.
Washington DC is 57 degrees and clear right now.
Go ahead and hit the Internet Explorer, please.
Hey, have they found any more about that plane that's missing?
Well, they're looking off coast of Australia right now.
Looked a lot like a shipping container to me in that picture.
Yeah.
What's bizarre.
Yeah.
All right, so tonight, that was actually the third priority. We didn't have any presentations. All right, we need to review the public comments, that's what I wanted to do. Before we got into anything heavy. On the order.
Just for my own edification, where'd the 4,000 foot standard come from? Do you know? Is that?
So this is what happened on the 4,000 foot standard, and I was going to write this up to show in the slides for the presentation that we're going to make in 2 weeks. So because this seems to be the question. So initially, we didn't really have a really good handle on what we were doing, and everybody seemed to be throwing a mile out there. And then there was a question of whether to take the DEP standards. That was a question because some people felt the DEP standards weren't rigid enough. I think the DEP was like, what, 55
It wasn't, when you're talking about the 4,000 feet. you're
Well,
talking
we
about
didn't
the
get there yet,
setback.
but how we walked into it, starting very back at the
Oh, we
beginning.
started
So,
walking into it.
right, the
Sound.
DEP standard was considered to be not a good standard initially. Okay, so then we were talking about going down to like 5 decibels below that, I think, that at a mile, because people didn't like the DEP standard at a mile. So then we're talking about coming down to the next standard, like 5 decibels below. I don't remember the exact numbers. I want to say it was like 55, 45, and we were going to go, and people were saying, no, you should go like 50 and 40 or something like that at a mile at the time. So then we had everything kind of a discussion about that one week. And then the next week, as I recall, Bill came in and Bill said, why don't we have the standard at a more, at 4,000 feet for the more restrictive standard instead of 5,000, instead of a mile.
Yeah, well, that was the point, was to make it more restrictive. But the other part of that was, since we were basing it on sound, at a mile, it was irrelevant.
Right.
At a mile, it's so far below 55, 45, or, it was like, wait a minute, why are you restricting it further out than there's any danger for any reason?
Because the first discussion of it was all about the sound. Well then, when we decided to focus on the sound and not the radius, then all of a sudden, you know, there was a group of people that were concerned about the radius, and they were still talking about the sound, but it never gets that loud at that radius anyway. So we were focused on the sound. So that's how this whole thing got started, is focusing on the sound, because that was the quote-unquote the issue. So,
And then we asked ourselves the question, what is the rationale behind a mile? And basically it was, some people picked that distance because it was convenient, is what it amounted to, as their initial, pulled it out of a hat. It was a nice round figure.
right,
But you'll find for different standards in different countries and everything, it's all over the
It's all over
place.
the place, yeah.
well, like, you know, you could ask yourself, well, why are roads 66 feet wide? Do you know why?
Probably something to do with back in 1800s.
Right. The 66 feet happens to be four rods.
Yeah.
Okay, and you know what a rod is?
Yeah, it's a wheel thing. Yeah.
Right. It's like 15 or 16 feet.
Like a cubic.
Or yeah, right. 16 and a half feet.
Yeah, 16 and a half.
It's 16 and a half feet. And 66 feet also happens to be, you know, a chain. You know what a chain is?
Not heard of it.
It's 100 paces. Okay, with your every other foot coming to the ground. I mean, so these are the way that these standards get established with human beings over time. And so basically, you know, a mile is actually I forget, it's so many, actually it is so many chains as a mile. I forget how many chains a mile is, but if you take
Yeah.
66 feet and divide it into a mile, it comes out to, I think, to an exact number. So, I mean, it's an arbitrary number that was convenient and everybody can identify with what a mile is because we're in North America. And if we were in another country, we'd do something in meters or kilometers.
See, if you look at those setback standards all over the place, many countries, in many places, it's 400 meters, 500 meters, 1,000 meters.
Yeah, I'm seeing, photographs of people
all-
with thousands right at the base of,
Which is ridiculous, but anyway.
They're all over the place.
So, bottom line, there's no industry standard, take a national standard is.
Bruce, can you pull that over to the side towards you?
So make sure that you got the ones that are not. So what I've done now is I've sorted them by the ones that are not answered. Okay, so this one actually is for this article here, and I posted, I believe, if you go back over to this page, I made a folder for Stephanie, because she sent several links.
The screen is locked. The screen's locked. Get that little lock down there, maybe that'll.
What's going on with this darn computer tonight? This didn't happen last week.
I'm trying right clicking, let's see.
How do you minimize this?
It should be, there's some.
No, it used to be on the other one. It's Clint.
Long time.
I'm gonna fix that, I'll try.
First, hook it up to your computer and see if you
Shall I
can,
check it?
see if it behaves any differently on your computer.
The thing is, I'm not sure about getting on the internet good here, but hold on. Minimize that so we can. Thing is, USB display. I have no idea how to send something out to the USB display.
Go to,
You know, you'd be better off if we switched to an HDMI cable for this.
it should be going in there.
I bet you get an HDMI output for that.
Well, I think there's. Find out it's quick, so.
Yeah, it's just how you make the setup.
We have this kind of cable output on this, we'll just do that. Maybe that will solve this one too.
VGA cable?
Let's try this VGA cable. It's on this side. Unhook that USB port through first. And then you can figure out this, and you can figure this out. Because we didn't have this problem before.
We didn't.
Okay. Before I try to plug it in, there we go. Accept, source search.
Yeah,
HDMI.
no, this is VGA. There we go.
Yeah, with Clifton.
No, I think we're in the ballpark now.
Or at least for Maine.
Okay, yeah, I think you're better off just going with video than trying to use the,
So, we need to go,
there we go.
where is the folder?
Just close all tabs.
That's another guy, like,
Just hit the Internet Explorer. Oh, so not, oh my golly day. Those must be automatically opening tabs. You can just do it again and then search it. Just close two tabs and leave one tab open. And then search for, go into the search window and search for Clifton Planning Board. It'll come up. Just search right in there. Type in Clifton Planning Board, Google, and it'll come right up. For Clifton Plan, yeah. No. So Roger Poland.
You got it right there.
that's a lot of the computer, you can go down.
Wrong place.
Wrong.
Keep going down.
You could also type in like land use ordinance or
Yeah.
to
No,
get,
it's
to get
sure.
Put in
Go up.
Maine, you gotta put in Maine on
it's way past the 5th page if you search this way. If you
Go
type
back
in
up.
land use ordinance after it, it'll come right up
Yeah.
first thing.
What she said.
it. Right there.
That's it.
Here? No, the
Second
workshop. Right there.
There we go.
That's the word.
All right, cool. So, we'll come back over to this page here. And I made a folder for Stephanie. And Well, I put that up there as a link. Oh, let me just back, we'll go back to her public comments, just cut and paste it in. This thing doesn't do, links, unfortunately. Come on.
No, it's not a hot link.
No, I know it's not. There. Seriously?
Just,
I've had that problem with links from that website too.
just go to the date and Bangor,
Yeah.
billing use, and you should be able to find it. I figure.
If I just type in vinyl haven, it should be able.
It's so hard to search this site. If you do Vinyl Haven Wind and then search newest, sort by newest. and
Right
then-
there.
There you go.
There we go. No, that's,
That's old,
Old
yeah,
is
go to
good.
the newest, where it says sort by, yeah.
yeah.
There you go.
There we go. So the comment was, there's concern that once you make it a rule, it's difficult to enforce the rule. So anyway, are you guys familiar with this project? I mean, I'm somewhat familiar with it.
Yeah.
So, in a nutshell, this, I'm not sure if this is the, Patricia Aho. I believe she used to work for a law firm in Portland that formerly represented the developer or something on the island or whatever, and then she got a job with the DEP. And then the DEP was already making changes, and she came in and overturned the DEP, I believe is what happened. Is that somewhat accurate?
Yeah.
As you guys remember the story. So, I mean, to me, clearly the judge indicated that she had a conflict of interest. And also, she didn't follow the advice of the engineer. As I understand this case, the engineer told him to do certain things that the DEP was going to do, and she said, don't do it. Is that your understanding?
From what I read.
Close. It's, the story isn't what I would call well written.
So, I guess from my perspective, and I don't know if anybody else has a different perspective on this, I mean, clearly, the judge ruled that this person shouldn't have made the decision that they did, and so the issue wasn't enforcement, the issue was conflict of interest.
Sounds like.
If you bring it down just a little further,
And clearly they should have listened to the engineer.
And they
What he
would
was
listen to the
talking about.
engineer, I mean, if they would listen to the engineer, they would have not had the problem in the first place.
The reason I brought this article to your attention is just to bring light to Vinyl Haven's noise complaints that have gone unremedied for close to 3 years. The DEP part of it wasn't really as relevant. I wasn't really trying to highlight that. It's just that this just came to, where it was a recent article. I looked down and I read the previous article about this project, and it was mostly about the fact that there have been violations and they can't do anything to stop the violations. So it's just almost proof that we should make sure that we have something in our ordinance to have teeth in these restrictions.
Well, we agree, we don't wanna, for anything, whether it's shoreland or subdivisions or whatever, we think that once the rules are made and we give a permit, that we have expectation that it gets upheld.
Mhm.
But they did some things, I think, to try to fix it. They put the serrated edges on, that's the right height.
There were some temps.
Yeah,
I mean, and they did lower the DB, I think, down.
And they have curtailed one of the turbines, so
yeah, they did some things that, yeah,
But this most recent violation, as I believe, it said the neighbors complained in what, July, was 2 dBA over the limit. I believe the limit is 45, and they came in, the 2 violations were, one was at 46, and I think one was at 48.
Could I make a comment?
And that was at 780 feet from the resident. Actually, it was because it's a 100-foot radius. It was actually, I think the residence was at 780, but when you calculate closer to the turbines, it has to be 680 feet away.
Is this an open discussion?
Yeah, go ahead, Paul.
That kind of illustrates my point that, a point that I would like to make, that you talk about a shoreline violation, you can probably go and determine that in a relatively short time. A violation of a noise standard in the middle of the night, 3 nights out of a week, how do you verify that?
Well, the people that complain have to pay for a sound study, and so that it found 3 nights, those were the 3 studies they did. So the onus is on them to prove that.
So it was
Okay. Can I throw something in? After this right here gets built, there's gonna be another sound study
Mhm.
to get the noise levels, to let us know what the noise levels are. Am I right, Paul?
that's correct.
But no sound study that's conducted in one 14-day period at one time can tell you whether there was compliance on a specific day of the year.
Yes, but the problem that Vinyl Haven's having, which we're not gonna have, is the people that's complaining are living close to the towers.
We're
And
not,
we're gonna be,
Not all of them.
Not-
There were
not
some
all
that
of
were
them.
like a mile away and still complaining about the noise.
and I mean, that's kind of irrelevant. The cautionary tale here is, can you prove whether it was in compliance or not on a particular night? And who should have the burden of proof of that?
Well, we'll have to take a good detailed look at the operational aspect of the ordinance, but I would estimate that, we would have monitors out there for some period of time during some period of complaints, and then we would compare, the concern versus the measurement equipment. I mean, we do have the authority to do that in the ordinance.
I would suggest that the town own their own sound equipment. I mean,
The type of analysis and equipment needed to do the compliance. is
well, at least
beyond
the initial violation to,
It's
ascertain.
it's beyond what the town could either afford or has the technical expertise to do. You can't just take a sound reading. You have to average it over a period. That means it has to be, it's a different type of instrument, and the calculations involved in determining.
At least collecting the data, couldn't a town citizen be trained to do that and then submit the data to Hessler and let him?
Possible. The only question there is how expensive is the equipment to do that properly?
Can you lease it, borrow it?
You can lease it. I'm not sure what the price is on it. That's because you not only, in order to be able to really test for a violation, you need not just a sound meter. It has to be recording instrument, you have to have a weather station. There's more involved than just,
You say a weather station.
if you don't do the measurements under particular wind conditions.
I have a weather station in my house, for example. Could that be a test site? It's well outside the 4,000 feet and all
I
that.
don't know if it would meet all, if you take a look at all the specs involved, they're pretty detailed.
But I can measure barometric pressure, wind speed, wind direction, temperature, barometric, all the other.
Right, but it all has to be done to a certain accuracy. The data points have to be collected every
Right.
so many.
Could I be trained to do that?
No, can I ask a question? Because we're stricter than the DEP, we have taken on more enforcement responsibility that in other places the DEP would be handling. The DEP, like at Mars Hill, went back in and does testing on a regular basis, or a yearly or 3 year or whatever. They have a schedule. The DEP does it. What would be the case here if we had a wind energy facility here that was stricter than, and our standards are stricter than the DEP?
Well, we're planning on doing some work, this ordinance rewrite on the operational aspect of it. So if you have recommendations for what you think would be good on the operational aspect, then those would be good to have. And we're looking into that in some of the articles that were posted, that I dug up, discussed that type of thing. So Stephanie posted 3 other things for us to read.
Well, you don't really have to go through each thing I posted. I thought this was just a place where we could put up stuff for everyone to see. I don't.
Okay, well, these came, all right, well, I guess I should clarify, just to make sure, because when people email us with requests to do things, this is how we're taking them currently, that they have expectation that we look at them and talk about them.
Yeah.
Okay, so then when we talk about them, then it's good to make a record of the fact that we talked about them. That's the only reason that we're doing it. But if you don't want us to talk about them specifically.
No, that's fine, you can.
Okay,
That's fine.
I mean, we'll do it either way. I was just sort of annotate that you said we didn't need to talk about them if we don't want us to.
Well, no, I just didn't, I'm not making a presentation, I didn't want to waste your time.
Well,
I
no,
just
these are
wanted
all
some
public
information.
comments. The goal is to address every public comment.
Okay.
So anyway, with these, I believe we've worked with Mr. Nissenbaum's work in the past.
We all reviewed that particular report
I think,
early on in this. It was one that Peter Beckford brought to our attention early on in the process.
and certainly he has an opinion of it. It didn't seem, I forget, what did we conclude about this one before?
Bruce knows.
Bruce, remember, was that, this one was not peer reviewed, or I believe, was that part of this?
Well, they really,
I forget.
it's not relevant, well, I shouldn't say it's not relevant. Of course, all the complaints came within an 1,100 meter radius of the turbines up there, which I think was 32 properties. And 1,100,
30 properties.
30 properties,
Well,
and
unless
you're
there's a
talking
couple
about
of-
3,600 feet away, which is a
30
lot closer
Well,
than
3,300.
33.
Well, if you round off meters, it's a little bit.
3.28 for a meter
Yeah.
equals
There's, when I counted, I got 15 properties in that range in 2 areas, and if you look at his original report, he has circled as being what he considers danger zones. What's interesting is that since they put the wind turbines up, 2 more houses have been built in one of those danger zones, for one thing. I didn't bring the measurements with me, but they're both under 3,000 feet. Right next to, near other properties. In fact, one of them's only 20-something hundred feet away. The thing about his study is, though, just like Nina Pierpont's, however you pronounce her name, it's a self-selected study. In that basically, yes, he went out and he approached the people.
He had control.
Yes, and the controls, if you take a look at the area where they came from, are all in an area with relatively high noise. Not from a wind farm, but they're right along Route 1A.
Well, one of the interesting points to me was that his conclusion was that somewhere around 5% of the people in the vicinity of wind turbines were in that susceptible group of people who will potentially react to the noise. And he was one of the earlier studies, but later studies from all around the world, from what I'm seeing, come up with a very, very similar profile of 5% to 10% of people are susceptible to having, I don't want to call it wind turbine syndrome because I hate it when they make those kind of judgments, just like Gulf War syndrome. They couldn't prove Gulf War syndrome because they didn't want to. But when they went in finally and studied the people who were suffering and came out with some kind of case-by-case study, then they were able, with Gulf War syndrome, to identify some problems.
Nobody's denying.
Nobody's denying that there are problems if you're too close.
That goes.
Well, that's the other thing, is they're finding them farther and farther away.
In rare examples, farther and farther away. Plus, you have to separate out those people who are simply annoyed, and there is a strong correlation between the people complaining and the people that don't want to see them in the first place. That's in several of the different studies. So if you don't like the looks of them, you're going to complain after they're up, if you can hear them at all. And there's a difference between health effects and, well, I don't want to hear them no matter what, or see them.
Well, from all the studies that I've read, there's the people that are annoyed are probably reacting to the audible sound. They're annoyed by the audible sound. The people who are getting sick are probably not being annoyed by the audible sound. There's something else going on with them. And so...
Have you looked up something called somatic symptom disorder? Or the nocebo?
Psychosomatic?
No.
Somatic?
Somatic symptom disorder. And also look up something called the nocebo effect.
Well, this is the thing.
If you mean in the DSM, well, it was 3 in my day, but it's probably up to edition 8.
I think it's actually over 10 now. It has been 9. I think it's popped over or whatever.
If that's what you mean. I mean, we're talking about, you've got to have a specialist to come up with a diagnosis of that,
Correct.
Well, this is the thing, actually, because we could go, I'm just going to point out here, okay, this is the Australian Medical Association, just to kind of show the counterpoint. Gives wind farms clean bill of health and attacks misinformation. And then there is this one that says, oh shoot. Study finds again no evidence wind farms make you sick. And then this one says wind turbines can be hazardous to your health. And I mean, this guy isn't any schmuck. I mean, he's some PhD at the Colloquial Fluids Research Laboratory, okay? These are all things that I found. So the point being, that, and